What's up everyone, it's Sinistry, and today I am here to discuss Kirby's Dream Buffet. This is a game that seemingly came out of nowhere, and a lot of people have been comparing it to the likes of Fall Guys, and have also been wondering why this game seemingly dropped when no one knew it even existed. In this video, I will give my 2 cents about where I think this game came from, as well as kind of put to rest some of the Fall Guys comparisons, and also give some other comparisons to different games, both good and bad. At the end, I'll also give my recommendation for who I think should pick up this game. So if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. That way I know you're interested and I will continue to make content like this in the future. With that being said, let's answer the question, is Kirby's Dream Buffet really a Fall Guys ripoff? To answer this question right off the bat, my answer is no. I don't think that Kirby's Dream Buffet is a Fall Guys ripoff, but I do acknowledge that there are some similarities. I think it's undeniable that both games have obstacle courses, they're both casual games with bright colors, and they both appeal to very young audiences, as well as just casual audiences of all ages. However, once we get past these aspects, I would argue that the games are actually pretty different. On Fall Guys' side, I would say that it is a more built-out game with tons of different modes, a larger player count, and just larger kinds of games in general that feel a little bit more complex compared to Kirby's Dream Buffet. However, Fall Guys is also a lot graphically and musically simpler than Kirby's Dream Buffet. On the other hand, Kirby's Dream Buffet is a lot simpler, it's a lot smaller, there's a limited number of players compared to Fall Guys, and it's also very beautiful and it sounds beautiful as well, just as you would expect of a polished Nintendo game. I do want to say I'm not detracting from either game. I think both of them have great aspects and I think both of them maybe have some flaws, but personally I think they're kind of different games, and to really compare them, I get that it's because they're casual and they have obstacle courses and they're competitive and they're colorful, but realistically I think we need to acknowledge that not every game needs to be compared, and these two really don't feel like the same game. However, I do feel like Kirby's Dream Buffet reminds me of 2 different games, one for good reasons and one for bad reasons. The first game is one of my favorites, which I've already talked about on this channel, Kirby Air Ride. So this might seem a little bit obvious, but both games are Kirby racing games. In both games, you have power-ups that you use to collect food or attack enemies or just do different things. Also, the Grand Prix format in Kirby's Dream Buffet reminds me a little bit of City Trial in Kirby Air Ride, where you go around the city and you collect power-ups, and then you have a mini-game at the end where you might be fighting or you might be racing or doing various things. I know it's a little bit different in format, but it does kind of remind me of that mixed gameplay style. Also, this may not be intentional, but if you look at the director of Kirby's Dream Buffet, I believe his name is said Shinya Kumazaki, and he actually started his design career on Kirby Air Ride, so that was the first game he ever designed with Nintendo, and that's really interesting because you definitely get kind of a feeling that all of his career is kind of pulled into this game, and I feel like there might be some unintentional callbacks, or maybe even intentional ones. The second game that Kirby's Dream Buffet reminds me about, unfortunately, is Super Mario Party. So this might kind of make sense once I start talking about it. Obviously, both games are casual and meant to be played with your friends, but even beyond that, both games are so limited in scope. If you look at Super Mario Party, it has like only a couple of maps, they're very small, the mini games feel kind of uninteresting, it just kind of feels like it's already been done before, and I get similar feelings from Kirby's Dream Buffet. Both games kind of make me feel like, sure, I'll play them for an afternoon, and then I won't pick them up again for another 6 months. It's just an unfortunate comparison that I really could not get away from once I started to realize it. So while I thought of Kirby Air Ride and Super Mario Party when playing Kirby's Dream Buffet, I would love to hear if you thought of any other games down in the comments down below. The next question we will try to answer today with a couple of different possibilities is, why did Nintendo choose to make this game in the first place? The first option is, it's Kirby's 30th anniversary and maybe Nintendo just wanted to put out another Kirby game this year that's more casual, rather than Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is more of an in-depth game. This is the simplest answer, and I think that regardless of any other factors, this one definitely had a role to play within the decision to make this game. Now, option 2 is a little bit different. Maybe Nintendo wanted to see where to take Kirby in the future and wasn't sure if it should be more of a serious franchise or if it should be more of a casual franchise. Kirby's always been in a bit of a weird middle ground where it's not really taken as seriously as like a Mario or a Zelda, but it's also not really forgotten about the way a game like F-Zero might be forgotten about. It makes me wonder if Nintendo is trying to figure out what to do with Kirby in the future. Should they make more serious titles that are really in-depth? Should they make more casual games to appeal to a broader audience and a younger audience at that? I don't really know if they were considering this when making Kirby's Dream Buffet, but the fact that it came out so close to Kirby and the Forgotten Land kind of makes me think it was almost an A/B test, and Nintendo just wants to see what people's reactions are to these different games. Now, the next option is Nintendo might be kind of testing the waters on some more casual games and maybe wanted to use Kirby as a test. When I say casual games, I mean more so the $15 range, the games that aren't really fully built out, full $60 experiences, but also not free to play, because I kind of get the feeling that Nintendo doesn't love free to play. They kind of like it sometimes, but they don't really want to put a lot of effort into free to play unless they have a good reason, like if they're using a franchise like Pokemon, for example. Now, Kirby is actually the perfect franchise to use for this kind of test, purely because it has so much name recognition. Like, if you ask any Nintendo fan, do you know who Kirby is? Every single one of them will know. Unless they're like 4 years old and they've never seen Kirby in their life, they will know who Kirby is. But while everybody knows who Kirby is, Kirby doesn't sell the way that Mario or Zelda or Pokemon sell, so there's not just a guaranteed hit right off the bat. You have to kind of see, are people interested in this kind of game, or are people just not really all that interested in this exact gameplay? Because people know Kirby, they will definitely get the name recognition out there, and so people will hear about the game, but they won't necessarily pick it up because not every Kirby game is bought by every Nintendo fan. But it's really hard to make a Mario game or a Zelda game that's going to sell poorly, even if it's not the best game in the world. Also, you have to consider that if they're testing the waters with Kirby, it's probably because they're willing to lose some of the faith in the Kirby franchise, whereas they're not really willing to lose faith in something like Mario or Zelda that are more of their heavy hitters. If Kirby's Dream Buffet sells well, Nintendo might be willing to put out some other more casual games for other franchises, but I think that after maybe the failure that Super Mario Party was, and seeing that that was a $60 game that really should have been no more than $15, maybe Nintendo kind of had to take a step back and think, okay, how are we going to price casual games and how are we going to make them cost effectively? So the final option for why Kirby's Dream Buffet just seemingly appeared out of nowhere and suddenly dropped this summer with basically no ramp up is the schedule shifted. There have been a lot of really huge games announced for Nintendo in general, just a few of them being Breath of the Wild 2, the new Pokemon games, Xenoblade 3, Splatoon, like all of these different games on top of so many other games as well, and the possibility of maybe a Mario game being worked on in the background. I think that possibly some of the release dates for these games had to get shifted due to maybe some of the working schedules because of the pandemic, maybe just some other issues getting things to work, and maybe they had to be delayed, or maybe they just needed to shift things a little bit. So in reality, it could have been that Kirby's Dream Buffet was going to be more built out, maybe it would have been a little more in-depth, or maybe it would have had a longer lead time and more of a ramp up. But in reality, I think it could have been an easy game that Nintendo looked at several months ago and went, you know what, we can't really afford to hang on to this game for so much longer. If we have to hang on to our heavy hitters even longer, let's just get this game out. Let's bring the money in the door, and then we'll just add on DLC, or we'll make new modes in the future, or do something like that. It's not necessarily a guarantee that they did this, but I wouldn't be surprised just purely because this is a very casual game. It's not a game they probably anticipate selling like crazy, but it is a game that they can easily get out in a shorter period of time, whereas they can't really rush games like Zelda. In reality, the reason why Nintendo made this game was probably due to a multitude of factors. The biggest one being that they really liked the game idea. I'm sure that Nintendo wouldn't have made this game if they didn't think the game idea was great, and I think the game is very cute, so I think it did pay off. But in reality, I do think that there could have been other factors that kind of influenced, how they dropped the game, how they even announced the game just a couple of months ago, and really, how they went into building this game and the scope of it and the magnitude and all of these different factors. I'm sure there were a lot of different things at play, and we'll never fully know the story, but at least these are a couple of different options to give people to mull over and consider, maybe Nintendo had a little bit more on their plate. Maybe they're thinking through things strategically. We'll just have to wait and see if any other games come out that are kind of similar. But that being said, we now are going to answer the question, should you pick up this game? You should definitely buy this game if you have kids, especially if you have young kids. If you have a partner who isn't really a gamer, but they like casual games like Mario Party. If you just don't have a lot of time to play games, but you like to play them to wind down, or if you think this game is just super cute and you want to try it. Honestly, I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't buy this game, but I also think that in reality, a $15 game for, kind of what you get out of it, it can be kind of a hard decision to make. A $60 game, you can anticipate you're going to get plenty of fun times out of it, but a $15 game, they kind of tend to be hit or miss, so use your best judgment. If you feel like no one is going to play this game with you and you would be playing online all the time or playing with CPUs, maybe you don't want to pick it up. But if it's a game that you would love to play with your friends on a casual Saturday afternoon, or if you have kids and they are a little too young to pick up larger or more intense games, then definitely consider picking up Kirby's Dream Buffet. Finally, I will give some of my final thoughts on Kirby's Dream Buffet. Kirby's Dream Buffet is such a cute game. It's a game that I'm happy I did get because I'm sure it'll be fun playing with friends from time to time, but it's not really a heavy hitter and it's not a game that I'm going to play very often. I won't be rating this game because this isn't a full review, this is just more of an analysis. But I would say that it's kind of a middle of the road game. It's not a game that I would say is perfect by any means or one of my favorites, but it's also not a bad game. It's just kind of there. Also, I really hope that Nintendo moves away from making these $15 games, or that they can maybe bring on teams who are more experienced with making these games smaller in scope, but making them more addictive, more fun. Because in reality, this kind of reads like a game that just isn't finished. Like it was a $60 game that got cut down to $15 because it doesn't have all of the maps, it doesn't have all of the modes, it doesn't feel fully fleshed out. Personally, I would prefer if Nintendo just sticks to the $60 games that they are really known for, or makes free-to-play games that people can buy skins for, because in reality, I don't think this $15 price point really works for them, especially when you consider that $15 is a typical indie game price point, and a lot of indie games are way more fleshed out than games like Kirby's Dream Buffet. So that was my analysis on Kirby's Dream Buffet. What do you think? Do you have any game comparisons for Kirby's Dream Buffet? Do you think that Nintendo was doing this as a strategic move? Do you think that they made this game to see what to do with Kirby in the future? Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on all of these different thoughts. But also be sure to like and subscribe if you like this content. I make gaming content on Mondays and Thursdays. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.